What's up, YouTube? So, I want to talk about brown-skinned black women who distance themselves from dark-skinned black women and who even participate in colorism, or rather perpetuating colorism against dark-skinned black women. And this isn't all brown-skinned women, of course. All right, this isn't all. And as well, there are some dark-skinned women who sort of even do the same thing. Um, for, perhaps maybe because they have maybe a feature or certain features that perhaps allows them to sort of navigate colorism a little better than, say, some other dark-skinned females. But what I want to talk about in this video is the brown-skinned women who sort of do that, right? Where they sort of, do differentiate themselves and make it a point to differentiate themselves from dark-skinned black women. And I feel like it sort of comes from perhaps them feeling like the dark-skinned black women are sort of viewed in a negative light. So perhaps they want to distance themselves from being viewed as in a negative light and saying, well, they're brown skinned, which is probably true. They probably are brown skinned. But I know for me personally, I tend to group brown skinned and dark skinned people together. I know that there are differences that can play out between brown skinned and dark skinned black people. I mean, we all know about like the whole crispy puppet situation, right? And as well, when these two female YouTubers were, having their beef or perhaps debate, if you will, about colorism, something like that sort of came out, right? One YouTube user who's, extremely popular within the colorism sphere of YouTube, right? And another female YouTuber, she was brown skinned, brown skinned female YouTuber, who's popular, who doesn't really talk about colorism much, and she talks about white supremacy and swirlers, especially black male swirlers, right? So even, within that whole situation, that sort of played out too, where it was like, the brown skin woman is sort of using her positionality a little bit as a way to sort of put herself above the dark skinned woman. I know some people are saying, well, that's a reach, I think, but I think that that's not completely a reach. um, but again, we see this sort of playing out at times, and again, not all do it, but some do it, and I just think that, sometimes people will latch on to any positionality that they can get, honestly, like anything, just to be considered a little bit better than somebody, right? And also, there's another factor that goes over people's heads, um, and that is sometimes some people, particularly in the black community, um, both male and females, but especially males, I think, will say to the brown-skinned female, "Oh, you're not even dark-skinned," or "Oh, you're not that dark," something along those lines, right? And sometimes the brown-skinned female will run with that, and say, perhaps maybe I shouldn't be talking about colorism, since, I don't want to make it seem like, because it seems like once you talk about something and speak out against something, then it's almost like you're declaring yourself as something, right? Like if you talk about black issues, people, and you look a certain way, people are like, well, you're black, like if this was like some racially ambiguous person talking about black issues and speaking out and advocating for black issues, you would probably assume that they were at least partially black, right? And I think it sort of works similar in the situation with brown-skinned females, where it's like, well, the brown-skinned females perhaps may not want people to think that she identifies, quote unquote, as a dark-skinned female, if you will, right? and she identifies with that plight. Because a lot of times people say like, oh, the colorism plight of the dark-skinned black female is basically an ugly girl's argument. And, you know, women especially don't want to be seen as ugly, right? So it's like, well, I don't want to, you know, highlight myself and, point myself out as being quote unquote ugly, or, struggling to get a date, or all that stuff like that, right? And so sometimes, the brown-skinned female will collude with the system of colorism, or the colorism hierarchy, right? And I think, on some level, I think every group does sort of help maintain the colorism hierarchy in its own way. Every single group does play a part in maintaining the colorism hierarchy in its own way, or their own way. Well, y'all know what I'm saying. Sometimes we do notice where some females, particularly some brown-skinned females, will sort of describe their skin tone as being lighter than it actually is. And that could be partially because of just their experience within their immediate environment, where perhaps they were the lightest person in the room or the area, so perhaps they just received, quote unquote, the light skin experience or the light skin treatment, which, that does happen. Like, biracial people getting the black treatment, right? And then of course we know about when colorism, complaints come up and colorism arguments come up. It's like sometimes some brown-skinned women tend to be on the side of, say, the colorist folks, who are excusing colorism that happens to darker-skinned black women, are trying to justify colorism that happens to brown-skinned and dark-skinned women, are just trying to avoid it altogether. Sometimes they help in maintaining that, keeping that going, right? Perpetuating that. And again, it's kind of like when it comes to white supremacy, right? Where there are black people who will play their part in maintaining white supremacy because they do kind of feel like they get something out of it, right? So they're very individualistic in this case. Instead of working as a collective or as a group and working on behalf of the group that they're a part of, they would just be purely out for self, right? So, this is not unique to brown-skinned and dark-skinned women at all. I'm not trying to say that. But it's just, it speaks to just the situation that brown-skinned and dark-skinned women are in, and sort of how perhaps some brown-skinned and some dark-skinned women even deal with the situation, right? And sometimes I think some people just aren't woke to the the reality of colorism and how pervasive it is and how damaging it is. Sometimes I just think some people just aren't woke. Other people, we know that they're just trying to avoid the situation. All right. I don't want to go on for too long, but I just want to come through with that piece and just put it out there and just see what you guys think about that. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Into the next video. Adios and goodbye for now.